What's up, guys? Jase here, excited to bring another video series to Tournament Poker Edge. This time around, we're going to be reviewing the late Super Tuesday, which at this time was a $320 buy-in. Recently, Stars switched it up to a 215, which is nice because I think the lower buy-in will probably add a few more recreationals, recreational players into the field. Regardless, we got some hands to look at, so let's talk some poker and go through them. As always, we won't spend too much time going through some of these easier spots where we're just, open folding. I think this is somewhat interesting. I think this is certainly a hand I wouldn't mind overlimping, maybe on the button. I think here in the hijack, with four players left to act behind us, it's okay to just open fold this one after the limp. And that's what we do. Seven-handed here, but I think we still want to be, even though we are a little bit short-handed, we want to be folding these weak offsuit aces from early position. Okay, we see a 3-bet here. Obviously aren't going to be flatting or doing anything other than folding. Certainly would have peeled against the 3x open if it folded around to us with a suited queen from the big blind. Okay, again, this player limps, so I'm going to assume that this is a recreational player, and obviously we want to be playing pots against these type of players. And we find ourselves here with queen 4 suited on the button. So I don't mind overlimping here, and I actually don't mind like making it 3 or 4 BBs either to isolate against this player. I think it is a little bit thin, but I think especially deep stacked, it should be profitable as long as we're comfortable with our post-flop play. But we do fold it, which multi-tabling I might have not recognized the spot quite as well as I should have in game. But yeah, I don't mind us getting in on the action there on the button to try and play against a weaker player with a suited hand like that. Pick up ace-3 suited in the big blind. And we got a 3-bet from the small blind. And yeah, I mean, our hand is pretty nice, especially deep stacked. But we have a player behind us, obviously, who can 4-bet. Our hand actually, I mean, it's not the worst 4-bet bluffing hand here with a weak suited ace, but I don't really know too much about these players. I believe, sorry, I'm not sure exactly who this is. Switch something. I believe I recognize Dujo123 as a reg, and I'm not sure about this player, but I do have over 100 hands on him, and he is pretty aggressive. Anyways, I think I'm overcomplicated this spot. It's obviously a standard fold in most situations, possibly exploitively. We could turn it into a 4-bet, but I'm not really ever comfortable flat calling with a hand like this with the player behind still to act. And, us only have committed 60 chips. So, anyways, moving on. We can the button, fold to a raise. Here's one we're certainly going to play. Yeah, I mean, flatting is definitely standard. There is almost 700 chips out there. Three betting probably isn't the worst play in the world here, but we do have 3 players into the pot from early position. I wouldn't expect Marbav to have any sort of huge hand that he's trapping with, but certainly a Hoon could, and obviously Dujo opening under the gun has an uncapped range. So yeah, I think the standard play of just flat calling here with a pretty hand is the way to go. And we flop middle pair and a gut shot. Not the best holding going four ways against early position ranges. And against that bet size, I think we should just be folding. Yeah, I think this is too loose of appeal. Maybe if there was one club on board, I could convince myself that it's okay. But him betting 3/4 pot into on that board that basically hits all three of our ranges fairly hard. He's showing a lot of strength, and I think we should just be folding this hand to that sizing. He does check now, and definitely don't think there's any reason to turn our hand into a bluff at this point. So we're gonna check and see free river. And he bets, I guess a little over a third, about 40% pot on the river, and puts us in a pretty awkward spot. I think because we showed so much strength by flat calling this flop, I think he can definitely take this line with ace queen or king queen. Um, I don't think he's going to take this line with like a hand like ace king and turn it into a bluff. I'd expect him. I don't know. Like I feel like if he's betting this river, he should be betting bigger. I'm kind of confused by the small sizing. Like what bluffs is he choosing this sizing with? It doesn't really make too much sense to me. Um, so that being said, because I can't put him on too many bluffs here, I think I prefer a fold, even though we're getting a pretty good price. And his range is somewhat uncapped, um, seeing as though he checked the turn. I mean, he could be trapping, but we do block the nuts, obviously, with the king. Um, I think it's too. I don't mind theoretically us raising here and turning our hand into a bluff. I think it's like us blocking two pairs and the nuts. I think it's a good candidate for it. However, when we check back the turn, I think it's not very believable of a line for us to rep like massive strength. So yeah, I think we should just fold, and we do. Again, weak ace, early position. We're going to be folding for sure, and we'll definitely peel here with a Broadway hand versus the cutoff. Very dry board. One that we should expect most players to c bet quite often, and he does. So we have two overs and some backdoor straight draws. Definitely don't want to fold this spot. I think we have a little bit too much equity. We are at a position, so that complicates things a little bit. I don't mind against certain players, especially ones that we expect to c bet this type of board a lot and maybe not have the best post flop hand reading skills, to recognize that this typically isn't a board we're going to check raise a lot for value. I think it's okay for us to check raise with a hand like this, but certainly at least calling. Oh, and we fold. Yeah, I think that's a little too tight on a board like that. We have decent amount of good turn cards for our hand, and we can definitely turn our hand into a bluff at some point. Anyways, 6-5 suited here. Decent three betting spot, I'd say. Not one we necessarily need to take every time here in the small blind. I think this hand's a little bit too weak for me to want to flat call here in the small blind. Uh, I believe Chrissy B is a reg. Anyways, yeah, okay, we do decide to 3-bet, and I like that. And we got to fold. All right, Ace 10 offsuit. Um, yeah, I think the standard is to just peel. I think our hands, I mean, considering we're getting 5.5 to 1, um, I don't really like 3-betting with a hand like this. I think I'd rather just peel. Uh, make our 3-betting range from the big blind a little bit more polar, where it's either hands a little bit better or hands a little bit worse. We flop top pair, so it's a good start. Very small bet from this guy who initially called the raise pre-flop in the cutoff. I think certainly the only play here is to call. I think it's super unnecessary to really do anything else. Don't really want to raise for value, and obviously folding's out of the question. Interesting turn. Um, it's a turn that definitely hits our range better than either of theirs. But that being said, when we have ace 10, I don't think we should like really be turning our hand into a bluff. Um, at this point. And yeah, I think now we can just fold. Chrissy B can definitely have some pretty strong hands. It's an interesting line. She or he check called the flop and then leads the turn on a spade. So on a board pairing spade. So pretty interesting line. I'm not quite sure what type of hand she'd be doing this with. Possible like kings with the king of spades. I don't really think that makes too much sense. I'd expect her to check call. Um, most of her flush draws, maybe not nut flush draws. I'd expect her to c bet. It actually looks like she has like a seven a decent amount, like 7-8 suited, 7-9 suited, 7-6 suited, something like that perhaps. Anyways, oh, and she did have a flush, so check called the two spades, which I mean isn't crazy or anything, but interesting line. All right, fold all these junky offsuit hands. The queen six off in the small blind. I would probably open fold this to good aggressive players. Um, this player I don't know too much about. Doesn't have aggressive 3-betting stats, but definitely seems fairly active. Not crazy, but so I'd probably go for a limp here. But I do open fold it. It is not like I don't know. It is a pretty bad hand, but it might be a little bit too good just to open fold in the small blind when we're getting such a good price um, against a big blind who we don't expect to punish our limps maybe as much as they should. Okay, we got King Jack suited on the button. I like the flat call. And very nice flop for us, obviously. Now, we're 56 blinds effective against this player, and I guess 83 against these two players behind. So I don't think this is a spot where it's certainly a spot where we can get all of our chips in and, it's going to be profitable. But this hand actually sets up quite nicely as a flat call here, just because we have middle pair. There's obviously obvious equity right there, and other than like an offsuit ace, there's really those are the only bad turn cards for us. So we don't really need to protect our hand all that much when we flop a pair and flush draw like this. So I'd rather just flat call here and see what develops with these two players act behind and on the turn. We hit our flush, checks to us, and he's got 5K left. There's 1,500 in the middle, so we basically want to play for stacks here. Um, if we bet 1K, that's going to leave him with 4K and 3,500 in the middle. So I think that's fine. So I think we want to be betting at least 1K, if not like 1,100. And we do that, but villain folds. We take down a decent pot. Obviously, would prefer to get more action. Okay, this player limps, and I think we definitely want to ISO here with a hand this strong. Oh, we over limp. I prefer a raise. Obviously, going to be flat calling this raise once the big blind gets it in, or sorry, makes it 3x. We flop top pair. The initial raiser checks, which I think is good for us. Well, it's obviously good for us. If he bombs this flop, we got to proceed with caution, obviously. Now that it checks to us, I think we definitely want to bet to get value and protect our hand. And we do. I think we bet about 2/3 pot, which I like on this white board texture. Get called in two spots here. So definitely a lot of dicey turns and rivers. That is not one of them. And I don't expect either of these players on this type of board to have anything super strong. I mean, Marbav definitely doesn't have like ace king in his range, that's for sure. And I would expect him to get his really strong draws and his like two pair, like king jacks, and on the flop. Um, and yeah, I mean, there are a lot of bad rivers here, so I think we definitely want to bet if it checks to us, which it does. Um, and yeah, I think a fairly, I mean, it is a lot of chips, but I don't think we can like check this back, or I don't think we want to check this back to give a free card against both of their ranges. It might not be the worst play, because if we bet 3K here, or 2,500, somewhere in that range, and then Ahoon jams on us, we're in a really shitty spot. So I'm kind of convincing myself now that maybe a check back. I mean, it's definitely something we want to consider. To be honest, I'm not sure which option I prefer in a vacuum. My instincts tell me that we're good, um, and that we want to be betting for protection. But I think it is an interesting debate, and I could be convinced either way. Okay, we bet half pot, which may be a little bit small. Um, it does leave some room for us to get away from the hand if Ahoon does check jam here. He does fold though, and surprisingly, both players folded to somewhat small sizing on the turn. But I guess it is, a huge chunk of this player's stacks and a quarter of Ahoon's. Anyways, win a nice pot there. Up to 12K from 10K starting. So yeah, we're getting a great price here. Connected hand. Let's see, 3. We flop middle pair with some backdoor straight draws. Certainly not going to be folding to a reasonable size C bet. That's a very small C bet. So we'll definitely see another card. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't really. I think it's definitely possible that we have the best hand at the moment, um, but no reason for us to like. If we raise here, we're turning our hand into a bluff essentially, and there's no real reason to bloat the pot at this point, even though there are a lot of overcards that can come. We just want to be flat calling here. Fairly good card for us. If we were good on the flop, we're obviously good on the turn. And it checks around, so I'm fairly confident at this point we have the best hand most of the time. Um, I guess actually like Brazuca could be checking back that turn for sure with some of his overpairs. So, we don't have the best hand every time, but there's a reasonable chance we have the best hand. Don't think I'd be betting for value though in the river unless we hit a 7. Again, pretty decent card. But yeah, definitely not betting for value. And going to be hard pressed to fold to a bet from either one of these players given the action. Certainly that sizing makes a call really easy. And he somehow ends up having a full house. I shouldn't say somehow. I mean, I guess I should say that. Like, he didn't make nearly enough chips, or at least attempt to make nearly enough chips as he should have. I can understand slow playing the turn once we fill up. Actually, I can't really. I think we should be betting the turn to get value from draws, and even like we have plenty of nines in our range that can raise or obviously call a decent sized bet. And certainly, if you're going to trap the turn, when it checks you in the river, you want to be betting a little bit bigger with your full houses rather than a quarter pot or whatever this gentleman bet. Anyways, definitely don't mind how we played it. Go for the limp here at the 6-9 off. Don't mind it. And do end up getting a raise here. So keep that in mind. Um, might want to obviously consider trapping with some of our stronger hands in the future against this player. And yeah, I mean, I think you could probably make a case for flat calling this hand, but just in terms of our raw equity versus his range, but obviously being out of position, we're not going to be able to realize all of that equity, especially with a hand like this that doesn't necessarily flop all that well. It actually kind of flops decently, but turns in rivers usually doesn't. An offsuit two gapper hand isn't really the best, obviously. So yeah, I like a fold here. All right, ace nine suited folds around to us. We will be opening. We'll go for the 2.5x, which I like at this stack depth, still fairly deep. Okay, we got a raise under the gun from this player. The old slow play and bet really small with full house. Sorry, I'm just debating. Like, I think this is an okay hand to 3-bet against some players. This particular villain, though, does not raise a super. Oh, I guess he is actually 18%. It's not the biggest sample, obviously, but 18% from earlier position. So maybe he is loose enough here that we can throw this in our 3-betting range. Um, I think I'm tempted to flat call at this stack depth, especially against this player who doesn't seem like they're elite by any stretch. And I would certainly consider it more from the button or cutoff, from the hijack. Maybe it's a little bit too thin, and we do decide to fold, which I think is probably ultimately the best option in most circumstances. Get the ducks here, but we face a large open under the gun, so we can fold those easily. Yeah, King 9 is too strong to fold here, so we definitely should have peeled, but we did not. So that was rather nitty of me from the big blind, I'd say. 8-5 suited against a reg, as far as I know, like a pretty good reg. Don't have his stats in front of me or anything, but I definitely see Fred Volpe around a lot. I believe he's Brazilian. Um, Based on his stats, actually, fairly tight. See from the cutoff, even from the cutoff, he's fairly tight as well, and really tight from the button. That's pretty interesting. Um, so with that being the case, yeah, definitely just fold this hand. I think against some loose openers and players that fold to three bets quite a lot, which he doesn't. Only 20% fold to three bet. Uh, I don't mind this hand as a three bet from the small blind, but yeah, against him, prefer a fold for sure. All right, get the ace queen offsuit. And this is an interesting spot. Whether we want to three bet or flat call. When we do three bet, we're gonna have to fold to a four bet, which honestly isn't like that devastating with ace queen off. Um, so I think I actually do prefer a three bet. I think we can definitely mix it up depending on the villain and just to randomize our frequency with certain hands. I think this is a good one to do it with. And yeah, okay, we do three bet this time around, and we get folds. This time we get three bet by the small blind, who is a reg. Um, Fairly reggish stats. Pretty aggressive, but not too crazy. Three betting from the small blind, he has a very high percentage, 21.1. So we'll keep that in mind here. Definitely 50 big blinds deep. I don't see any reason to like four bet get this in, uh, even though he does have such a high percentage here. But we're in position. We have a strong hand. I'm definitely down. I mean, it's too dicey to like four bet here and then get jammed on for 50 bigs. So yeah, I think flat call all day here. And keep in mind that we expect this player to have a fairly wide three betting range here. So, doesn't have to have super premium. Oh, okay. I decided to jam here. I mean, let's see. He's got 1,300 of his 78 in the middle, roughly. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I way prefer a flat call, and we do get called and get really lucky. So yeah, that was a spew, and I'm not gonna try and defend that play after seeing it. Um, and we ended up getting lucky. So it happens sometimes. Raise the ace nine, folds around. We get min raised here, and we have I guess the worst connected hand in the deck. We're still getting a great price in position. I I see no reason not to flat call here with almost our entire range. Obviously, we're going to three bet some of our range as well. But yeah, that's a little bit tight. Versus a min raise from the small blind. Generally, I'm like, again, certain players are going to be flatting any two in that spot, or at least that should be my strategy. And against some players, I'm only going to be folding like the bottom 10% of hands, basically. Decided to fold the 3-7 suited, which I think is good. Maybe open that from the cutoff, not from the hijack. Certainly open it from the button. Okay, we peel with the a6 off and flop middle pair. Yeah, we'll see what happens. This player bets small. Certainly a spot where we should have enough equity where flat calling here is pretty much a slam dunk. And I don't see reason to do anything else. Oh, yeah, I mean, I don't know how many tables I'm playing at this point. There's really no excuse though, but yeah, I think I've made at least like three or four, I think, pretty obvious errors so far, so I'm not liking that. Um, but I mean, that's I guess why we review, to try and realize some of the mistakes we're making, even though, I should, I know theoretically that I shouldn't have made those plays when I was playing, but I guess I'm not paying enough attention, which is not good. It's definitely, every mistake cuts into your win rate, um, and we want to avoid them. I mean, that goes without saying. So, no excuse. Hopefully, as this tournament goes on, I'm not making any of those obvious errors. Okay, we 2.5x under the gun +1, and Cleeth 3-bets us fairly large. It's over 3.5x. So, because the sizing is so large, and I mean, I know he's kind of like a legendary player. I'm not sure how well he's been doing the last handful of years, but certainly someone that is a fairly capable poker player and plays higher stakes. I believe still does. Definitely used to. Um, yeah, we can just fold this hand, I think. I mean, I guess we are getting 2.1 to 1, 1300 into 27. Yeah, I prefer fold. I mean, it is very close, but I prefer fold. All right. If it folds us in the cutoff, we could raise. Jack 7 suited. Yeah, it's a little bit too thin from that position. Should be peeling here. Not a good flop for our hand. I would say it's a board. I haven't worked out the math, but it probably slightly favors our range. We probably have a few more of these pairs that we connect with here than key hell opening out of the cutoff, but certainly nothing significant. We both have really wide ranges here. Would have folded to a c-bet for sure. I think with a hand like this, I don't mind splitting up our bluff range here on the turn. Um, Bluffing, obviously for value, we're going to be betting our 6x, um, our stronger 5x, and I guess it's possible we could have like, he's 36 bigs effective, so I guess we could have sevens, maybe eights. We probably 3-bet get that in versus this player. Uh, Anyways, splitting up our bluff range with some of our flush draws, um, all of our unpaired straight draws, at least all of our unpaired open enders, and probably sevens, like other than our ace highs, I guess, which have some showdown value. And then also splitting up, using some of our bluffs with our overcards, where when we do pair up on the river, we can bet again for value. Um, that being said, I think we probably so we block his flush draws now. So he's going to continue at a lower frequency than if we didn't have a heart. So maybe we want to delineate our bluffs that way, um, where we can fire a hand like this on the turn and bet again for value, obviously, if we pair up, or continue bluffing if a heart comes up. Um, Something like that. But, anyways, we decide to check. And so he's going to have, I think most of his range is going to be ace high here. Maybe, yeah, he's going to have like ace high, uh, ace three, maybe, maybe like three deuce suited, um, pocket deuces. That's basically the extent of his range. He could have some king high as well, but I expect he might fire some of his king high on the turn. I don't know. Anyways, I don't think. I think we want to be. I think we definitely do want to have a bluffing range here on the river. I'm not sure if Queen 9 should be included in that range. Um, Maybe we want to pick a few of our worst hands, like our Jack high and 10 high. Um, Anyways, I don't know. I could lean either way. I don't think it's like the worst to try and steal the pot here because I don't expect us to be good very often at all. And we do decide to bet, and he looks us up with his ace high, which is whatever. It's maybe it would have been a better line to bet turn and river. I don't know. Sometimes you just lose the hand, and that's just how it goes. You don't need to question it necessarily. All right. Yeah, Cleeth raises off a little 32. Yeah, we'll fold this. Obviously opening the ace 9. We get 3 bet, a little under 3x. Um, so yeah, we're getting a pretty good price here in position. So I like a flat call. We flop middle pair on a king high board. Um, so it's a little bit dicey, but certainly against the standard sized C bet, we're gonna have to call. And definitely want to, for me at least, want to check back this turn, or sorry, this flop with middle pair. Um, it's actually like I think betting small is also okay too because then we get to see a river for really cheap most of the time. So I don't mind actually either of those plays, checking or betting like I don't know, 1,500 to 2,000 ish. Um, Definitely against like a really good player, I would be less inclined to choose that small betting line. Um, I'd be more inclined to play like more of a GTO strategy, I guess, where on this type of board texture, we're going to be, you know, first of all, we're going to be betting larger um, on this board texture most of the time. And usually you want to be, checking the flop with your middle pairs. Anyways, Queen of Hearts turn. And he leads, and that's a really bad turn card for us. And I think now we can just fold pretty easily. So we're almost at 40 minutes. Okay, we'll look at a couple more hands and end part one off. Ace 10 off. If we got shoved on here, I think by expose a Bray, who again is an old school reg. I don't really see him play too much anymore, but I know I'd expect him to have a loose enough 3-bet range here versus our cutoff open that we'd be calling with ace 10. And yeah, at this table, I think there's too many regs for us to want to open this loose under the gun. And we do fold. I'd like to see that. Um, so yeah, I guess we'll end things off here for part one. And obviously, part two, we're going to pick up where we left off. So um, yeah, look out for that. And it looks like it'll probably be a 4-part series overall, based on us getting through 100 of 451 hands. But anyways, I appreciate all of you checking out this video, and look out for future parts soon. Thanks, guys.